Before the first murder, before the first lie, before a human existed to sin, someone was already hating God in silence. He was the brightest, the most beautiful creature ever made, the angel standing at the throne of God himself, covered in precious stones, with music built into his own body. He had everything a creature could have. He had a closeness to God that no living being will ever experience. That was exactly what destroyed him, because in a moment no one saw, in a silence no one heard. He looked at himself, he measured his own beauty, and he thought one thing: why not me? 5 words later, heaven had war. A third of the angels fell with him. Creation itself was torn by the first rebellion. The most beautiful being in the universe became the most hated. His name was Helel. The Bible would later call him Lucifer. The world today knows him as Satan. What almost no one tells is this: the sin that destroyed him was not weakness, not failure. It was perfection turned inward. It was God's own gift used to betray God. And that same sin is alive in you. The story you are about to hear is older than humanity, older than Eden. It happened in a place we cannot see, in a time before time existed. Lucifer was not created evil. He was created perfect, trusted with the highest position in heaven, standing closest to God himself. In a single thought, he became the first creature in existence to look at his creator and decide he wanted to take his place. What follows is not a horror story. It is the story of how perfection becomes corruption when a creature forgets that he is a creature. Before there was a sun, there was a light called Helel. Before there was a star in the sky, there was a being whose entire body was made to shine, whose name in the original Hebrew means Shining One, Son of Dawn. Latin translators centuries later would call him Lucifer, Light Bearer. He was the brightest creation ever made. He existed in a place the prophet Ezekiel could only describe in flashes: the Garden of God. Not the Eden where Adam walked, but the original Eden, the dwelling place of the Most High. A mountain made of light, surrounded by stones of fire that radiated colors no human language has names for. Helel walked among those stones. He moved between them with a freedom no other creature was given. The text says he was the anointed cherub that covered. The Hebrew word for anointed is mashak, the same root that would later give us the word Messiah. He was set apart, chosen, marked for the highest position any created being would ever hold. His body was covered in precious stones. The list of them reads like the high priest's breastplate that would be designed thousands of years later in imitation of him: sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, emerald, carbuncle. The light from the throne would hit those stones and refract through him, splitting into colors that flooded the throne room. He was, in a sense, a living window, a creature designed to take in glory and pour it out again. The music came from inside him. The same passage in Ezekiel says, the workmanship of his tabrets and his pipes was prepared in him on the day he was created. He did not pick up an instrument. He was the instrument. His body was built with music inside it. Every breath produced sound, the texture of his skin, the structure of his throat, the vibrations of his wings. All of it was tuned. He did not learn to praise. Praise was the language his body was designed to speak. Picture walking into the throne room at the beginning of all things and seeing a being whose every movement was worship, whose laugh was harmony, whose silence was anticipation of the next note. The other angels saw him daily: Michael, the warrior; Gabriel, the messenger; the seraphim, who hovered above the throne crying, "Holy." Thousands upon thousands of them. None of them shone like Helel did. None of them were given his proximity to the throne, his role of covering, his anointing. He had no rivals. He had only one above him. This is what makes the story so heavy. His beauty was not an accident. He was not a creature who happened to be beautiful and then was given a job. He was created beautiful for a job. The covering cherub was a guardian of holiness. a being whose entire existence pointed back to the one being covered. Every gem on his body, every note in his voice, every shaft of light reflected through him was meant to draw eyes upward, past him, to the throne. He was a frame around a portrait. The portrait was God. For a long time, this was enough. We do not know how long. The Bible gives us no timeline for what happened in heaven before the first day of creation. It could have been moments. It could have been ages we cannot measure. But for a stretch of existence we cannot calculate. Helel performed his role. He covered the throne. He led the worship. He moved among the stones of fire. His mind was perfect. His heart was perfect. His will was bent toward the one who made him. The text in Ezekiel says it directly. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. Until. That single word carries the weight of the entire story. Everything before it was paradise. Everything after it became war. To grasp what was lost in that until, you have to throw out the picture most people carry of angels. The bland white figures with feathered wings and harps, floating around in clouds, were invented by Renaissance painters who had no idea what they were illustrating. The actual descriptions are much stranger. Cherubim in the Bible have multiple faces, multiple wings, eyes covering their bodies. The seraphim around the throne have 6 wings each, and their voices shake the doorposts of heaven. These are not decorations. They are creatures of staggering complexity, beings whose existence operates on dimensions humans cannot see. Helel was the most spectacular of them all. The text says he sealed up the sum. The Hebrew is hard to translate. It suggests completeness, finality, the full measure of what could be created in a single being. He was not just beautiful. He was the standard by which beauty was defined. There was no being above him in glory, except God himself. He was given the only position in heaven that placed him directly between God and the rest of creation. The covering cherub stood at the threshold. Every angel who approached the throne passed him. Every prayer that ascended brushed his wings. Every glance toward the Most High passed through the prism of his shining body. In a real sense, he was the first thing other creatures saw when they looked toward God, and he knew it. The knowledge itself was not the problem. He was supposed to know. He was supposed to be aware of his own beauty, so he could properly direct the worship he received. A cherub who did not understand his own role could not perform it correctly. The covering cherub had to know he was the covering, in the same way a frame has to know it is a frame and not pretend it is the painting. For a long stretch of existence, he held this knowledge in its proper place. He looked at himself and saw a tool, a magnificent one, but still a tool, designed to point past itself. His daily existence was something humans struggle to imagine. There was no time as we measure it, no need to sleep, no hunger or thirst. There was only the rhythm of the throne. The Most High would speak, and the speech itself would generate light. The seraphim would respond with the holy, holy, holy that the prophet Isaiah would later overhear in a vision and never recover from. The cherubim would move in formations that made geometry look primitive. Helel was always at the center of these movements, the brightest point in a constellation of brilliant beings, the one whose music set the tempo for everyone else. When other angels were sent on missions to other parts of creation, they would return and report. Helel would receive their reports first, before they ever reached the throne. He was the gatekeeper of every word that ascended. He was also the channel through which much of the light descended. The angels who left the throne carried something of him with them, the way a person carries the smell of a place they just left. He was loved. The other angels honored him, not in the way they honored the Most High, but in a way that was real and meaningful and good. He had relationships with them. He had favorites. He had a particular bond with the warriors, and a different kind of bond with the messengers, and a different kind again with the worshippers. He was, in the highest sense of the word, a friend to many of them. The shift came in a single instant. The text does not describe it directly. It only tells us what came after. He saw himself, and he liked what he saw. He had liked what he saw before. Self-awareness is not sin. Appreciation of God's craftsmanship in oneself is not pride. The seraphim know they are beautiful. The cherubim know they are powerful. They go on covering their faces and crying holy. This time, the looking did not end. He kept looking. He stopped looking past himself. The text in Ezekiel says it carefully. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. The brightness corrupted the wisdom. The same shining that was meant to reflect glory began to absorb it. He turned the prism around. Instead of light passing through him to reach others, light began to terminate inside him. He became opaque. That single shift, that turning inward of attention that should have been turning outward, was the beginning of everything that came next. It was not yet rebellion. He had not yet thought the words "I will." He had not yet looked at the throne and considered taking it. But the door had been opened. Once that door is open in a creature, very few have the strength to close it again. Pride does not arrive all at once. It arrives in pieces. It builds itself one comparison at a time. The thought came again. He looked at his own beauty, and the thought followed. Why does he sit on the throne? Why does the worship rise to him and not to me? The first time the thought came, Helel pushed it back. He sang louder. He bowed lower. He performed his role with extra attention, hoping the discipline of doing his job would silence the noise. But the thought returned. The next return was easier than the first. He started looking at the other angels differently. He saw their faces turned toward the throne and felt a small bitterness he could not name. They were worshiping. They were doing their job. He was the one who had taught them the music, in a sense, the one whose body had set the rhythm. The worship was passing through him to reach someone else. He started measuring. He looked at his own brightness next to the brightness of the throne and tried to estimate the ratio. He looked at his own wisdom, given to him directly by God, and began to feel that the wisdom was his now, that what had been a gift had become a possession. A creature who treats a gift as a possession is already on the road. The corruption built itself slowly. He still showed up at the throne. He still covered. He still produced the music his body was designed to make. From the outside, nothing had changed. The other angels did not see anything different in him. He was the same Helel, the same shining one, the same anointed cherub. But inside, the words were beginning to form. 5 of them, 5 sentences that the prophet Isaiah would record thousands of years later. Words spoken in the silence of his own heart before they were ever heard. The text records them in their final form, the form they took when the rebellion had matured. But each one had been growing for a long time before it was ever spoken. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. 5 I wills. 5 declarations of an inward will turning against the one who created it. The first one is almost pitiful in its irony. He was already in heaven. He had been there from the moment of his creation. He had walked among the stones of fire on the holy mountain. The thought "I will ascend into heaven" reveals that he had stopped seeing where he was. He had stopped recognizing the gift of his position. The thought treats heaven as a destination he had not yet reached when he had been standing in it the entire time. This is what pride does. It blinds the creature to the gifts it already possesses by fixating on the gifts it does not. The second one is the deeper hunger, to exalt his throne above the stars of God. The stars are angels in this language. He wanted to sit not just among them, but above them. He wanted what the others had to be measured against him. He wanted the other angels to look up at him the way they all looked up at the throne. The third sentence is even more revealing. The mount of the congregation, in the language of that period, meant the gathering place of the divine council, the place where God presided over his angels. Helel did not just want to be admired by the angels. He wanted to preside over them. He wanted to take the seat at the head of the table. The fourth is geographic. To ascend above the heights of the clouds. In the cosmology of the time, the clouds were the floor of God's chamber. The throne sat above them. Helel was already above the clouds. He stood beside the throne. The thought, "I will ascend above the heights of the clouds," was the thought of moving past the throne itself. The fifth is the only one that admits what all the others were really aiming at. "I will be like the Most High. Not I will serve him better. Not I will worship him more. I will be like him. I will occupy his position. I will receive what he receives." In that single sentence, the entire architecture of the rebellion is exposed. Every other thought was a mask. The desire underneath all of them was the same: to sit where God sits, to be worshipped instead of worshiping. He could not have done it alone. A single angel against the host would have been crushed in moments. So he started talking. He went to the others. The text in Revelation tells us that 1/3 of the angels followed him, a third. Not a small minority of disgruntled outsiders, a third of the entire heavenly host. He was persuasive in a way that suggests he was using the very gifts God had given him to argue against God. His wisdom, corrupted, became sophistry. His beauty, corrupted, became seduction. His music, corrupted, became propaganda. He went angel by angel, planting the same questions he had planted in himself. Why does he sit on the throne? What makes him the one? Look at how he treats us. Look at how much we do for him and how little we receive in return. The angels who fell were not stupid. They were intelligent beings, beings whose minds operated on a level humans cannot conceive. They were persuaded by arguments that sounded reasonable, by comparisons that seemed fair, by a leader who looked like he had a better plan. They were persuaded by Helel, the shining one, the covering cherub, the being God had placed at the doorway of his own throne room. The war happened. The book of Revelation describes it in 2 verses, but those 2 verses contain the most catastrophic event in the history of creation. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back. There was no place found for them anymore in heaven. The phrasing matters. There was no place found for them. Not they were defeated and surrendered. Not they were captured and exiled. There was no place left for them. The very fabric of heaven rejected them. The mountain that had been their home spit them out. Helel fell. Jesus himself, talking to his disciples thousands of years later, would describe what he saw of that moment. "I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." Lightning. The image is precise. A single flash of light, brilliant and irreversible, striking down from the highest point to the lowest. The cherub who had walked among the stones of fire was now falling past them. The being whose body was covered in precious stones was watching the mountain shrink behind him. The voice that had been built for praise was screaming in a key it had never produced before. He hit the ground, or whatever it is that exists below heaven. The text is not clear about geography. He was no longer in the throne room. He was no longer the covering cherub. The anointing remained, in the sense that he could not be uncreated. But the position was gone. The first thing he must have noticed was the silence. For the first time in his existence, no music was playing inside him. His body was still capable of producing sound, but the harmony was broken. The pipes that had been tuned to the throne were now tuned to nothing. The second thing was the dimming. His body had been designed to absorb the light of God and refract it. With that light removed, he was just a shape. The colors faded. The brightness that had been his identity was gone. He could still call himself Helel. The name no longer fit. The third thing was the company. A third of the angels had fallen with him, beings who had also lost everything because of him. They looked at him with new eyes now, eyes that asked, was it worth it? He had to lie. The truth would have unmade him. The truth was that he had traded the throne room for a wasteland and the worship of God for the resentment of the demons he had recruited. But pride cannot admit a mistake. Pride doubles down. Pride invents new reasons. He stood up among them and told them this was just the beginning, that the war was not over, that God had cast them out because he feared them, that they would build a new kingdom, free of the tyranny of the throne, that the freedom they now had was worth more than all the glory they had lost. They believed him. Some of them, anyway. The others stayed silent and remembered. He had become a being whose only currency was the lie. Every word he would speak from that moment on would be calculated, strategic, designed to recruit and to deceive. The voice that had been built for truth would never tell the truth again. Heaven was closed to him. The mountain was closed to him. The throne room was closed to him. The universe was not. He still had access to creation. The text in Job is clear about it. Satan, by then a title rather than a name, walks back and forth on the earth, going to and fro, observing what God is doing. He cannot enter the holy place anymore, but he can see what God is making. What God was making was about to become the focus of his entire existence. God created humans, not angels, not creatures of fire and light, not beings who shone with their own glory. He created creatures of dust, beings whose bodies came from the ground and whose breath came from the mouth of God. Fragile, vulnerable, capable of dying. He gave them what he had never given the angels. He gave them his own image. The cherub, who had been the brightest creation in the universe, watched as God leaned over a clay figure and breathed his own breath into its lungs. He watched the figure stand up. He watched it walk. He watched God call it very good in a way he had never used about him. God called these creatures sons. He set them in a garden. He gave them dominion. He made them the rulers of the world he had just created. The shining cherub, who had been cast down for wanting to ascend to God's level, now had to watch as God elevated these dust creatures to a closeness he had lost. The hatred had a target now. He went to the garden. He chose the form of a serpent, a creature that in its original state may have been one of the most splendid animals God made. He approached the woman because she had not yet developed the same direct relationship with God that the man had. He used the same strategy he had used on himself, the same strategy he had used on the angels who fell with him. He planted the question, "Yeah, hath God said?" He did not deny God. He did not attack God directly. He simply made her wonder. He made her question whether what she had been told was actually what was said. He let her uncertainty do most of the work. Then he made the offer. The same offer he had made to himself in the throne room, the same one he had made to the angels who followed him. You can be like God. You can have what he has. You can ascend. She ate. She gave it to her husband. The dust creatures fell with him. This is the moment that defined everything that would come after. Lucifer could not undo his own fall. He could spread it. He could make the universe full of fallen creatures, full of beings who had also chosen the lie over the truth. If he could not regain heaven, he could at least empty it. For thousands of years, he worked at this. He moved through the history of the world, looking for ways to corrupt every covenant, every promise, every chosen line. He whispered to Cain about his brother. He pushed the generation of Noah into violence. He tempted Abraham to doubt the promise. He tried to destroy the line through which the Messiah would come, generation after generation. He was good at it. He had been the wisest creature ever made. That wisdom, turned to corruption, knew exactly where to push. He knew the structure of the human heart because it had been designed by the same God who designed his own. He knew the same 5 I wills lived in human hearts, dormant, waiting for the right circumstance to activate them. He found Job. The text shows him in the heavenly court, presenting himself before God. He had not been allowed back into the throne room as a worshiper, but he had been allowed there as an accuser. He stood at the right hand of God's people and pointed out their failures. He demanded the right to test them, to prove that their faith was conditional, to prove that they only loved God because of what he gave them. His argument about Job was theologically clever. He said the man only worshipped God because God had built a hedge around him, blessed him, given him children and wealth and health. "Take it all away," the accuser said, "and Job will curse you to your face." The argument was a projection of his own heart. He had served God when service brought him glory. When the glory was removed, he had cursed. He assumed every other creature was built the same way. God let him test Job. The accuser took everything in a single day. The cattle were stolen. The servants were killed. The children were buried under a collapsed house. Job sat in ashes, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery, his wife telling him to curse God and die. The accuser watched, waiting for the moment Job would break. Job, against everything Satan expected, held on. He grieved. He questioned. He argued with God for 40 chapters. He never cursed. The accuser learned that the dust creatures could be more loyal than the angels who had been made of fire. He learned that grace produced something he could not understand, a love that did not depend on circumstances. The hatred grew. Centuries later, in a desert outside of Jerusalem, he met the one he had been waiting for. He had spent centuries trying to figure out who the Messiah would be. He had killed every potential candidate he could identify. He had tried to corrupt every line that might produce him. In spite of everything he had done, the woman gave birth in a stable in Bethlehem, and the Word became flesh. Lucifer waited until the right moment, 40 days of fasting in the wilderness, with the Messiah weakened, vulnerable, alone. He came. He used the 3 temptations strategically. The first 2 were tests of identity, attempts to make Christ doubt whether he really was the Son of God. The third one was the one that mattered to him personally. The third one revealed what he had wanted from the beginning. He took Christ to a high mountain. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world. He said the words that exposed the entire architecture of his existence. "All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me." There it was, the 5 I wills, condensed into a single offer. He had not stopped wanting worship. He had spent thousands of years recruiting it from humans, building cults around himself, accepting the sacrifices people made to demons. Now he wanted the worship of the Son, the worship of the one who carried the Father's nature. If he could get Christ to bow even once, he would have won. Christ said no. The temptation was rejected with 3 words from the same scripture. Satan thought he had mastered. "It is written." The accuser left, defeated for the moment but not finished. He would try again. He would push Judas. He would put the cross in motion, thinking he was destroying the Messiah, not realizing he was sealing his own defeat. The cross was the trap he walked into. He thought killing the Son of God was his greatest victory. The truth was the opposite. The death of the Son was the price for the redemption of every dust creature he had ever corrupted. 3 days later, the Son walked out of the tomb. The accuser had no case anymore. The blood had paid the debt. He still walks back and forth on the earth. He still accuses. He still recruits. He still plants the same questions he planted in his own heart and in Eve's. The text in Peter calls him a roaring lion, walking about, seeking whom he may devour. He is no longer the lion. He is the imitation of one. The roar is theatrical, designed to terrify creatures who do not yet understand that the cross broke his power. His destiny is already written. The book of Revelation describes it in language that leaves nothing ambiguous. The dragon will be cast into the lake of fire, where he will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Not destroyed, not annihilated, locked eternally in the prison his pride built for him. The most tragic thing in this entire story is that at any point along the way he could have repented. He had wisdom. He had memory. He could remember the throne room. He could remember the music. He could remember what it felt like to walk among the stones of fire. He could have, at any moment, fallen on his face and asked to be restored. He never did. He never will. Pride cannot bend. Pride would rather burn forever than admit it was wrong even once. The 5 I wills are still in the world. They live in every human heart. The same thought that destroyed the most beautiful creature ever made is the thought that destroys human lives every day. I will be respected. I will be served. I will be in charge. I will not bow. You know the voice. You have heard it. The question is whether you will listen.